Okay. All right, so we're going to start with Barb. Barb is from Dry Run, which is a cash management software. And it's a group that I've been working with for the last, I don't know, 6-7 months now.
Yeah.
You know, I really like their software. There were some things about it that I thought could help us better, help us more as fractional people, and they were really open to exploring those things, and they made a bunch of changes along the way. So I thought I'd have Barb come here and just give you an overview, because remember the whole point of this meeting with the partners is to introduce you to people that I think you should know. And so part of what she's going to be talking about is why you want to know her and her company and her software. So Barb, if you want to go, you should be able to share if you need to.
Sure. Okay. So you told me that I had about 25 minutes, give or take. Is that
Yes.
still? Okay.
Still goes. Yep.
All right. Okay. Okay, so everybody can see, well, my slideshow presentation. Okay, thumbs up if you got it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm always, I never had a second monitor until about 4 years ago. And then I shared the wrong screen one time accidentally. And the person that I was chatting with online said, oh, I can see your email. So it's just given me this lingering, pervasive PTSD. So I always do like to confirm. Okay. So Dry Run. Dry Run was born of a concept in business and engineering in which we try to stress test various events prior to taking something live, right? It's also a really useful financial concept. You guys are well familiar with it since you're here taking in wisdom, right? So the goal in Dry Run, okay, and we've been, as Jeff said, we've been continually moving into a different market, and our happy place is CFOs and aspirational CFOs, okay? In working with Jeff, what he let me know, my contacts all over the place here. Okay, there we go. In working with Jeff, what he let me know is that there's a need for a, that met the core function of Dry Run, and that's that there is a need in CFO circles to have a tool that can absolutely impose some sort of really near-term cash management on companies that you work with, okay? That one that maybe doesn't conform so tightly to, I'm gonna use my quotations here, the rules. One that which, if you decide to go somewhat wildcat and use your own intuition, your experience, your expertise in the CFO realm, you can actually model those immediate cash flow changes that need to occur. And then you can model them, share them with your leadership and your stakeholders, okay, your finance doers downstream, have doers make changes and send them back up to you in a platform that doesn't break. Okay, so I'd like you to take you on a little tour today. All right. So a bit about me, located in Southwestern Ontario, Canada. If any of you are from Michigan, I'm about 45 minutes from Detroit. Okay, I'm the mother of two. They're the best people in the world. I was looking for, what is that term that describes like where I live? And I've decided that confirmed rural person is exactly how I like to describe myself. Okay. I used to be in deaf education, so I'm bilingual. I like to knit. I like to play music. I like to ride my bicycle places slowly where traffic isn't going to mow me down. I do some volunteer work. It's mostly in the finance space. So some of it's, we'll say board driven, but the work that's really close to my heart is helping folks build personal budgets to get them back on their feet. Okay. I don't know if emancipated youth is a term south of the border, but basically that refers to foster kids who have aged out of the system. Okay. Anyways, these are my people, and the red dot is where we hang out. If you've ever gone from Detroit to Buffalo, you've probably gone right past my house on the Canadian side. So down to business. Let's see here. I think you know what, Jeff, I left these case studies in, and I'm just going to circle back if we have time. So bringing forward a cash advisory position in the scope of your practice and working with your clients is a win-win as far as I'm concerned. Okay. I'm just, if you're not on mute, I wonder if is it me or is it you? I don't know. If it's you, can you put yourself on mute? Thanks. Okay. All right. So cash management's it's a little tricky. And I think that's more of a psychological thing than anything else. Okay. So we need to structure these things so that they are a win-win and a clear and transparent communication. And like I said to Jeff yesterday, everybody puts their oar in the water and they know which direction to paddle in. Okay. That's important. It's especially important if there's a company or a division or a department in distress. All right. It's really important to be able to impose your control in a way that is meaningful and highly communicative. Okay. Anyways, so the company wins in dry run. I understand my cash position and I understand what I need to do to get into a better cash position. And I understand what I can model out. I've got a clear vision of what risks and opportunities lay ahead of me. There's a lot of benefits for the CEO or the CFO as well. Okay. So you can impose that control on a stable or an unstable cash position, pardon me, or on a stable position that looks like excess liquidity too. Like you could do that as well. You can also communicate next steps very easily with your doers and your stakeholders. And then you can provide a format, almost like a sandbox format to your leadership team that allows you to model what ifs. All right. We're going to skip straight to the meat and potatoes. Nobody minds? One moment. Yep. Okay. So a brief whirlwind tour. We're going to create a new forecast in dry run. This is what your dashboard would look like if you had a number of clients or companies onboarded with us. Okay, we're going to call it Jeff's office hours. That's not how you spell that. Okay, and then we're inside a dry run instance. We call it a forecast of which it can have one or several scenarios. Okay, so I can clone my scenarios off my base case, and I'll get to that in just a minute. Or I can create fresh scenarios that either contain a lot of data or contain very thin what if data. Okay, it's also an ideal platform to, like I said before, clone one that you've been working on, pass it over to your leadership team and say, okay, folks, what are we going to do to boost revenues next quarter? Okay. The nice thing about dry run is that it's a very unconstrained platform. So it allows for a lot of unconstrained business style. If I use the term wildcat, somebody actually used that to me earlier today, wildcat thinking. Okay. Like, how do we get in there and just really make it happen at the speed of business? Okay. So very useful. Let's do that though. Presently, we integrate with Xero, QuickBooks Online, Sage Intacct, shortly NetSuite, QBD, and so QuickBooks Desktop, NetSuite's in beta, QuickBooks Desktop. I'm missing one, folks. Maybe not. Okay, spreadsheets. Okay, spreadsheet uploader as well. The uploader is really handy if you've got, say we've got a sales division that needs to bomb some data in to inform that line outward, okay, and play with the timelines. So here I go. I'm going to call this one cash flow actuals adjusted from QBO. The nice thing about dry run, you can name these things anything you want. Okay, what if we buy a fleet? What if we buy a plant? What if we sell a plant? What does that look like? QuickBooks Online data set is the one I'm most comfortable with. So I run that one most times for demo. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go through and select some endpoints that are run from matched transactions and certain tags in QuickBooks Online. All right. So I'm going to grab some demo data here. So month start balance, depending on what was when the closeout was for the following month. If not, I can fake it a little bit, which makes it ideal for a company that is under stress, we'll say. I can grab current balance, so that QBO balance. I can pick my inflow endpoints. I know that this file has invoices, but if it did, so invoices come into dry run arranged by due date, okay, which makes them easy to manipulate. We'll get to that in a minute. I can grab some other information if I wanted to, okay. This one runs pretty light, so it loads fast. So I'm just gonna grab invoices and bills, and I know my expenses are in the Bank of Test City. I get an import screen, and away we go. There's a couple things I'm going to do while this loads, okay? So I just want to orient you to our screen here. So I can go all the way down to daily, slice and dice these time horizons in a way that makes sense. Really common, of course, weekly and monthly, okay? When we run data in dry run, we can actually lock and load it so it runs indefinitely into the future, which makes quarterly nice, but not, I will say at our core, we're an operational cash flow tool and not very, but fairly near term, okay? So conditions that make dry run easy to use would be those under a year term. At the other end here, so I can slide back and forth in time. And I prefer month-end view rather than the total delta of inflows and outflows over the month. Okay, so here you can see that I've got my data set connected. Okay, my QuickBooks is live. If I want to refresh that, I can do that up here. All right. Then I get to see what has transacted recently and what I might need to do to help the company that I'm working with. One of the things I'm going to turn on, and I forgot this last time, Jeff. We're going to bump any and all overdue items to date. Okay. Basically, I want in the quickest, lightest fashion to collect everything that might be giving my company heartburn and then manage it as quickly as possible, right? So here we go. So these red triangles are reflective of what is overdue, sometimes not very overdue, okay? But you can see here that I've basically done a modified aging report and I can start filtering through these, okay? So if I were to recoup, I've got a considerable amount of money sitting on the table that would certainly help my business's cash position. What I can do with those is I can move them as the CFO. I can move them individually or in bulk, okay? So here's what I would do. If Barb Inc. didn't, I usually select this one. I think it's because it's my name, put it in here. The currency conversion in dry run plays really nicely with the currency conversion that is native to our accounting platform partners, which makes it ideal if you have entities located in different countries or if you transact across borders, okay, we got you. It also works really nicely if you consolidate those scenarios into a compiled view. So we'll get there, okay? But that's why you see this discrepancy between the amount that was billed for and current exchange, okay? So if I needed to move this into the future, I've had some bad news from Bar Bank. They're not going to be able to pay. I mean, it's not terribly late, but we might need to push that out, okay? What I can do is alter the expected date. We heard from them that we're not going to receive payment until June 1st. Fine. What you can expect to see then is I've managed this, got a yellow triangle here. So it's quick and visual for your leadership team. And there can be further modifications based on that. But really, folks, like, it's nice to do a one at a time. Okay, but really, if sometimes what we need to do is do a bulk action, of course, right? Depending. And to do that, I've gone into Dry Run's action list. We're going to grab cash in, filter by cash in. Open our date range wide to make sure we don't miss anything. And then look at what's overdue. As you can see, here's my Barb ink for June 1. We already moved that one. Okay. I am able to bulk select and move these around. So basically what I've done, just to sum up to this point, is I've said accounting data is nice. I need to wall it off and go whiteboard style to make these movements for my inflows and outflows reflect what's actually happening or what I see in my mind's eye as best practice for this particular business. So that's what we're doing. Okay, you can leave a note. Okay, after you move these, let's just move these first and foremost. Move them out to June 15th, we'll say. Okay, I could star them if they have to go back to my doers or my leadership team with a question mark. And then from here, I can add a comment and I can share with my folks, and away we go. Okay, the whole goal is to impose control over the inflows and outflows as quickly as possible and as succinctly as possible. All right, so when I flip back into my inflows, you can see I've made some changes. Fine. If I wanted to just quickly do these things as well, I mean, there's definitely more than one way to skin a cat in Dry Run. All right. Having done that on the receivable side, I then of course want to move that through to payables. And as you can see, I've got a number. So generally what we advise for first moves, okay, to keep a really tight implementation on companies that need to get started, get up and running really fast, is I'm just going to bulk move these according to whatever internal framework or schema works for me as a CFO. Okay, so whether that's a report that I query from my doers, whether that is based on payment terms, whether that's based on overdue status, it doesn't matter to Dry Run. You're allowed to do what you need to do to get that management piece under control as fast as possible. Okay, not going to belabor the point, but I could move all these just as I did on the inflow side. Finally, I've got some data. So I'm running live data on the expense side from my Bank of Test City, as you can see. What I can do with these transactions actually is create what I'm going to call a quick budget piece. I used to say quick and dirty, but it's decent. Okay. And I can do that manually in Dry Run. I can upload a spreadsheet that matches more closely some of the data that I have. And then I can set them to repeat indefinitely. So for instance, we've got Big Star Inc. You can get as granular or as high level as you want. I have folks tell me that they know that they spend $72,000 a month for their budget and they're really not interested in that as a function of Dry Run. And I say, fine, why don't you create a line item, call it budget, and put $72,000 in there. That's okay. It's not the hill that I die on. Okay. Not at first anyways. So from here, I just would like to recap and let you know that you can create an item anywhere in Dry Run, have it match what it needs to match if we don't pull it in from our accounting platform partners. Okay. Next step would be prescribing what that probably revenue looks like over the upcoming few months. So once we're in the cash management zone and everybody knows what they're supposed to do, who's touching Dry Run or touching the books, next steps would be, how do we prescribe some sort of, or project some sort of useful revenue line going forward? And again, I have the same amount of flexibility. I can bring data in if it's existing. I can upload from spreadsheet format to my example with the sales folks before. Okay, at the top of the call, I can manually put it in and I can do some assumptive work. So what does that look like? Okay. So let me just collapse these. I'm just planning. Give me a sec here. All right, I know what we'll do. Okay, so unlike this first scenario, which imports as much data as we can from QuickBooks Online, the sales forecast, by contrast, is very light. Okay, so if we said in June, we've got I can create a custom category. I'll call it closes for now. Okay, and we're going to say this is monthly sales. We'll say that's to the tune of $125,000. And you know what? Our sales have been pretty steady. So we're going to constrain that to the quarter. And stick that in dry run. From here, I'm going to prescribe some of my costs if I want to do so. Okay, so I can add a dependent. I'm creating a dependent relationship. All right. So with that dependency, I'm going to say these are costs. Whoops. All right. And we'll say that for my line of work, they're, I don't know, we'll say altogether, they're 80%. And we'll say that some of them are incurred. We'll keep it easy this time. Okay. So we'll go same 3 months. The nice thing about dry run is that we can prescribe what that relationship should actually look like. So do the costs run in advance? Do they lag? We can model that out. Okay, so I've got, whoops. We'll stick that on the expense side, right? Okay. So here I've got my 125 and I've got my recurring costs going forward. So what do I do with that data? Because it looks like it's offset with my main scenario. Well, I used to say mash them together. The accountant set really doesn't like that terminology. Okay. So we'll say we'll consolidate my records from scenario 1, scenario 2, from January until we said September. Okay. Okay. And here I've got it. So let me just roll ahead in time a little bit. Okay. Still underwater here, as you can see, but let's take a look. Okay. So at present, I've got my sales forecast here. So you can see my expenses of $100,000. And in July, August, as my data feed starts to drop off, you can see that my sales forecast closes is picking up to prescribe that relationship. Now, the functionality at this level is the same as before. We can add an item. Okay, so if we've got some sort of event that's occurring that would affect both scenarios, we can do that. This lightning bolt here everywhere is our growth model. Okay, more commonly assumption. So we can prescribe things like, well, shoot, gas has gone up. What does that look like to flexibly model that type of a situation on the cost side? Okay, and I can do that for the whole scenario if I want. I won't belabor the point now. So at every level, so at the forecast, the scenario, and then the category level in dry run, we have similar functionality to give you what is hopefully the quickest and most flexible way to do very, very near term cash management and then a longer term modeling piece. Okay, I think we're probably at a good place to stop, Jeff. I haven't been watching the time, but I don't want to go over time and into Melanie's time. I think we're at a good place to stop. If you have questions, I had a slide here that had my information in it. Kindly connect with me. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I think at this point, I'll take questions if anybody wants to pitch me live.
Pitch you live.
Well, pitch me a question live.
Oh, okay. All right.
You thought this was Shark Tank. It's not Shark Tank.
I didn't know. I wasn't sure what we were going to do there. But you should, if you're interested in, they're really, so Dry Run is very open about what they're doing, why they're doing it. You kind of heard that here. And so I would really recommend, talking to them, even if you didn't see something that you say, well, geez, if I could only do this, that would be a great thing. You should talk to them about that.
There's so much that we can do. So every use case looks different. So to your point, Jeff, thanks for bringing that up. We have started really working much more closely, actually on Jeff's advice, with folks who want to onboard to Dry Run, and they've got just a particularly sticky client situation. We have a lot of use cases at our fingertips, and we can always offer some good insight into what architecting looks like to a specific industry or company issue. Okay. The other thing too is, to your point, Jeff, we are very open about where we're going. We are looking to really get into the CFO market. We find that it's interesting. Coming from business, there's a real rogue mentality with what is doable when you work with a CFO. Okay. And that's very attractive to Dry Run, because these, like, you guys have a toolkit for days and a mental file of what has worked and not worked in a variety of situations. So the mentality works really well with Dry Run. So we're always interested to hear if there's functionality that you think should be in tool, what kind of solutions you're looking for, really what works for you and what doesn't. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So I would recommend you guys just talk to her, find out what's going on with this. I've looked at, and you guys can weigh in on this for a couple minutes. I've looked at a whole bunch of different short-term cash flow forecasting tools, and a lot of them were, they just wanted to take what you already had and just extrapolate it out into the future and that sort of thing. And so this was the first one that I saw that actually allowed you to manage similar to what like you would manage in Excel, but up a few levels from doing it that way. And I was, I haven't been able to implement this anywhere yet, but I was even imagining like you could use this to manage your AR, pretty easily, because you could put notes in there and things like that. So I don't know, I just thought it was a really interesting piece of software. And again, with the flexibility that they have on trying to make it really, really good, I thought it'd be something that you should all be at least introduced to. So that's what that is.
Thank you very much. So just to speak to a couple things that I saw appeared in my chat. So yes, I'd love to connect. So I'm going to answer that when it becomes Melanie's turn. I'm just going to do that instead. And so in regard to our roadmap, so QuickBooks Desktop, yes. And also insights and chart of accounts coming online, as well as more communications and functionality around what you can send over, rather than having somebody in here tinkering with our outputs. What can you send to your stakeholders? So that's on our roadmap. I'm really excited about that. There's something I'm missing on the roadmap before I pass it over. I'll find it. I'll send it in chat. Three-way forecasting. Okay, so that integration with balance sheet and income statement and how they can pivot around one another, and we can make assumptions projected into the future with things that are first and foremost cash impactful off the balance sheet, and then ultimately to a full view. Okay, So I'm gonna stop talking now. Thank you. I'd like to connect with anybody. And I'm muting myself now, Melanie.
Okay, so if you could stop the screen share, and we're gonna pause for a second and turn this over to Melanie. And I'm sure a lot of you caught up with the, oh wait, I got somebody in the waiting room. There we go. So on the emails, you know, one of the things that I had to go through as a fractional CFO, and maybe many of you did, you know, my journey, I started like 21 years ago in this. There was no such thing as the word fractional CFO, and it was just a desperation move. And so then I realized that I had to learn how to network, I had to learn how to sell, I had to learn how to position myself, all the things that I knew nothing about. And one of the things that I just got lucky on was, for whatever reason, people just trusted me, and they allowed me to come into their companies when they were in really bad shape. I never knew why, and I didn't want to know why. I just wanted it to just keep going. And so, you know, in this new version of my marketing, you know, my business structure, you know, so I know Melanie. I work with Melanie at Pivot Energy, and she was always talking about these archetypes and things that I didn't know too much about. But we got to talking, and we started to share some insights on, you know, how do you personally understand yourself and what you're all about and what you do. And so, you know, in my new model, I want to scale. So before, it was just, if I had 2 or 3 clients at a time, maybe 4, I was happy. I was making plenty of money, and I didn't really question anything. But now I really want to scale, and I want to go national, because, you know, again, I don't know if it's going to work, but this is my dream. You know, the fact that we can, with COVID now, do things like this with people all over the country. I said, you know, and I have clients that are in different states, and I know a lot of you do too, that you probably do, you know, with the internet and that sort of thing. So I had to kind of really understand that piece. Like, why is it people trust me? Why is it nobody check my references? And so I really wanted to know. But I, you know, so Melanie and I started to explore that. And we did that, we started probably a year and a half ago. And it really helped me understand all those things. And so then that helped me promote what I was doing and why I was doing it. And it's really paid dividends. But I got to tell you, you know, as a financial oriented mindset, this was a really difficult journey for me to get through, because I want everything to be really black and white and simple. And, you know, I'm not an artist type, you know, so, you know, the super creative, I like to be creative on certain things, but, you know, only within my 4 walls that I like to live in. And so I had to expand and learn. And so I want Melanie to, you know, talk about it. She can do much better than I'm doing right now, but she can talk it through with you guys. And I just want to share that with you, that journey, and allow you to either, you know, do it, process it, understand yourselves. And so it's going to take probably the next, you know, we'll do it in bites. So we'll do it over the next 3 or 4 meetings. And, you know, hopefully you'll enjoy the journey. I didn't really enjoy it, by the way, but it was a must-do thing. So, you know, but I hope you enjoy it. And Melanie's really good, and she's a lot of fun. So I'm going to turn it over to Melanie.
Well, thank you. That was a really nice introduction there. I hope this isn't super painful for everybody, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to start to share my screen just so we can make sure it works. Everybody, can you see that? Okay. I'm nervous if I go into presenter mode, then I won't be able to see you. So I'm going to keep it where it is right now, but we can go to that. So as Jeff said, I'm Melanie. I work with him at Pivot and I run our marketing department here. So I'm a marketing and brand professional that really specializes in brand development. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit more about who I am. So I didn't grow up with bunch of professionals or people that had their own businesses or did any sort of business service. I grew up with oh no, I can't move my thing. I should have tried to move my presentation. Great.
There you go.
I grew up with a Marine father. So we moved every 3 to 4 years. And this is one of the first questions that normally people ask you. And I have a really hard time answering that. So where am I from? Nowhere. I moved every 3 to 4 years. I was born in Nebraska, but we were only there for about 3 months before my mom moved back to Garden Grove, where she was from. And from there, we went to Hawaii, Tennessee, Japan, Maryland, which is where I graduated high school, and then went to Falling Waters, West Virginia, and I went to art school. Went back to Maryland, still in art school, and then moved to California, Denver, Fairfax, Virginia, and now I'm back in Denver. So my dad retired, but my mentality didn't really retire from the need to move every few years. And in this journey of moving and going to different colleges and going to art school, I never really wanted to be a professional painter, but I didn't really know what else to do since I didn't know anything else. I started waiting tables when I was in art school and really liked how the interaction with clients and how you could, sell specials. I got really into sales is basically what I said. You can suggest things, people will buy more wine. I started to compare how much money I was making for the restaurant to my tips. And then also ended up managing a place for 6 years. It was a full events place. So I had a staff. I started to develop the staff and started to really pull out their own skills. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of doing this thing that seemed to be working really well where I was doing it. And then I plateaued and I decided to go back to school. And I went back to school, and the first classes that I took were a leadership, sales, and marketing class. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is everything that I want it to be. It's design. It is behavior focused, and it has all of those metrics that I was really interested in constantly trying to improve. So these are just some pictures from places that I've worked or experiences that I've had. So I was a server for a long time. I worked at an advocacy group where I did marketing, recruiting, and canvassing. I worked for Dyson. I love their products, as you can see. This was my 30th birthday and my present. And I did sales for them. I had a couple of really cool experiences, one with Tom's Shoes, where I got to go on a kind of like a headquarters tour with them, and then also a giving trip. So understanding how they did their marketing and culture and how they built up their message through their customers. Like basically I was a marketing ploy for them for a little while. And then I did a culture training at Zappos, and during all of this time, I had transitioned into solar and worked to develop one of the first community solar companies, brand and acquisition campaigns, and then eventually moved over to Pivot, which is where I met Jeff. And here we are. Aside from my professional self, I still do paint. So the one on the right is a painting that I did for my sister. My sister is on the far left. That's my family. I'm still like a weird art kid at heart. And then the other one, the middle one, is my friends. I like to go and see live music. So with all of that about me, what we're going to talk about during this is really how do we build your own brand? And when we talk about brand, you can think about a company brand, but if we're talking about you and you're marketing yourself, maybe think about, it might be more helpful to think about it as like a personality. So when you are at work, you tend to put, like, there tends to be this like professional personality that you have that might be different from how you show up with your kids or your friends or in some other group, right? Like we have all these different complex facets of our personality, and your brand can be that professional personality of you. And yeah, ultimately getting that solid helps you attract more clients. So some of you might know why your clients choose you, and some of you might think you have an idea of why they choose you, but we kind of want to dive into that and see, are those the reasons, or is it because of something else that's maybe deeper that you're not thinking about? So what you're going to get over this series is we're going to develop your own brand. You're going to understand why your clients choose you. And then we're going to create some things that you can, some assets that you can have to fall back on to use at the end, which would be a brand pyramid, understanding your strengths and your archetype. And that'll be at the end of all of this series. So today, what we're going to focus on is what is a brand? How does it talk to your customers and why does it matter? What is a brand pyramid? And then we're going to do a vision and mission activity together to start to build that out. Great. So brand basics. What is a brand? So a brand is the truth of a promise. And when people talk about brands, some of the first things that come to people's minds are logos, commercials. It's normally advertising, really, is what people are thinking when they think brand. But a brand is more than that. It's basically the personality of a company. And more importantly, it's how does that resonate with those we're seeking to motivate, right? So when you go to a client and if you say, I've been doing this for X amount of years, I know how to fix your problem. If you don't deliver on that promise, then there's a disconnect, right? It kind of starts to fall apart. So it's the promise that you're putting out there being actualized by your client. So it's that overall experience that your client is having that helps distinguish you from other people. I think this is where it can get like maybe why it's a little bit difficult. So everybody on this call is a CFO. So you probably have a lot of the same kind of merits. But what makes you different from the people that are on this call? Do you have different clients? There's probably something that is there. And a brand's the overall experience that your clients are having. And it's a filter, it's strategic. So you can use it to help you make difficult decisions. You can use it if you ever expand and hire people. Or if you have a website or wanted to build it, it's every touch point having the same kind of filter put over top of it. Why does this matter? It matters because of your customers. So people like to buy because they need what you have and they like you. Those are a couple of reasons why people buy. And having a brand or like your personality being consistent, it provides people this peace of mind and creates this layer of trust. They're thinking when they go into this situation with you, they kind of understand what they can expect. And on the right side of the slide is the purchase cycle. So you could put yourself on this purchase cycle. We all consume something. So if you're going about your day and you're like, oh, I need something, you might do a little bit of research on what that thing is. And then you might compare the two. Eventually, you're going to evaluate those things, and then you'll select it. If you have to get approval, if it's a personal decision, it's a big one. Maybe you're approving it with your spouse, and then you buy it and then you have a customer. So when you have a really solid brand and something that is speaking to your clients and the people that you work with the most, and you've created that base layer of trust, then it cuts this purchase cycle down to evaluation, selection, approval. So it cuts it in half. You get clients quicker. It just helps with that, knowing what to expect. People want stability, and this provides that stability for you. So this is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time, which is kind of creating your own brand. So we're going to create the first part of a brand pyramid here. During these sessions, what we're going to do is we're going to gather some data. You're going to think about, what do you bring? And we'll have some group discussion. There'll be some surveys. We'll refine your results, and then eventually you'll have a brand pyramid. And today we're going to do your vision and mission statement. So I'm just going to talk through what that is first, and then we'll dive in. So your vision statement. So this is a brand pyramid, and your vision statement is why you do what you do. It's kind of like your big North Star, like what is the ultimate goal, or what motivated you to get into this in the first place? It's the guiding light. Your mission is what you do to fulfill that vision. And then your core values, which will be the next session, is how you act and behave. And then the value proposition is what your clients experience and why they choose you over somebody else and what sets you apart. So this combination of things really is the foundation of what your brand is and how you use it to move forward and get more clients. So I want us to take some time and think, why did you get into what you're doing? What is your ultimate goal? And why is this so important to you? And then also we'll write our mission statement. So then, once you've discovered what your ultimate goal is, and what are you doing to fulfill that? Just to give you some examples of what this is, I have pivots and then I have my own personal one. So vision statements, this is Pivot Energies. So if you have your own company, it can be maybe a little bit more grandiose than an individual vision statement, but Pivot will be a leader in the battle against global warming, doing our part to make distributed generation a major part of the solution. So that's a big, audacious goal, right? My own is to advance emerging green industries into the mainstream adoption, which is also a pretty big goal. What do I do personally to fulfill that vision is that I create human-centered brands with which clients and employees want to identify, and marketing strategies that drive product adoption. And I've been successful to date. And you have to, these things, while you are doing them, they are still kind of a big picture, right? This gives us a lot of space to add more services, to my personal one allows me to be with other companies or people to help pull that brand out of them, or any sort of acquisition strategy to really help them grow. And by doing that, I'm choosing companies and people to work with that normally work within some sort of green or emerging market, and help facilitate that. So we have the what you're doing to fulfill your vision. Pivots is accelerating the shift to clean energy through developing, financing, and servicing solar. So going back to our questions here, I want to take some time. To think about what is important to you. What is your big vision? And I might stop sharing for a little bit. Well, actually, you won't be able to see the pictures or the questions. I would like to minimize this. We'll just pretend that I'm doing that right now. We're going to minimize this, and I'm going to make it so I can see more of you. But let's take some time to write down, like, does anybody have a vision for themselves? Did you ever think about this before?
See, this is where it gets uncomfortable.
I can go ahead and go.
All right, Diane. Oh,
And thank you for putting this meeting together. Thank you to both of the speakers as well. It's my first time joining this group, and I love the content so far. So my vision for the world is creating a community where people are empowered to overcome their circumstances and show up in love and service to each other.
That's great.
yeah. Okay, so you just put us all down.
I know.
You haven't come up with anything now.
I was going to share, I feel a little chicken, but I'll go ahead anyway, because now mine seems small. So when I got into being fractional CFO, I was just coming out of a role where I was CEO and in a very difficult position. And I so badly wanted someone like myself to be working with me, so I didn't have to worry about finances, and I could just run the company and raise money and take care of the people. So that really is what drives me, that I want entrepreneurs and CEOs of small to mid-sized companies to be able to live their dream and not worry about the books and cash flow.
That's
Nice.
also great.
Yeah. That's funny the way you position it. So mine is positioned very similar, but it's flipped. So, you know, I didn't intentionally go to be a fractional CFO. I had to. But what I found were that all of these people I was working at in these small companies, all the financial people, they didn't know what they needed to know, and they didn't have anybody to teach them what they needed to know. And so I flipped it the other way. I said, I want to help people that are financial people get better, you know, and become good and become the type of financial people their
I like
company deserves. So it's the same exact thinking, but just looking at it from a different lens. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Well, and with mine, when I created it, it was more the vision for my life. And then it's like, how does that translate into what I do in work? And my background's more corporate America, but I grew up in a small family business. And I saw my dad struggle growing up. Do I invest in this restaurant, or am I going to lose my shirt? Do I open this new retail location, or is the rent so high I'll never turn a profit? And everything he did was based off of a gut feeling. And when I kind of fell into consulting, helping a few business owners I knew, it really came down to this aha moment of, wow, what would my dad have been able to create if he would have had someone with a finance background that could see and read the landscape and kind of know what was coming down the pipeline before it hit him in the face. And that was what really drives me in my work and working with small and medium businesses. It's really about that community, that family of the employees, the customers, the owners, and really helping empower them to move forward and grow successful businesses.
Nice. So there's a guy on here that hasn't been here before. His name is Jeff Sands. So like I say, you can never have enough Jeffs. So we have another one. But Jeff has a really interesting story. Jeff, you want to share how you got where you are and what your vision is of the world?
Oh, Lord, you really put me on the spot.
I know, that's what I'm here for.
I got here accidentally. I grew up in a family business, which suffered a big turnaround about 15 years ago. My joke is it took 3 years to pull off a 6-month turnaround. Did that successfully, then got wiped out by Hurricane Katrina. We were in New Orleans, lost the house, the factory, everything. Left the state, figured I had learned a bit about turnarounds, hung a shingle, and have been doing exclusively turnarounds for distressed industrial businesses ever since.
Yeah.
So didn't want to be here, but I'm thrilled I am.
Yeah. So Jeff has a book. If you want to hear Jeff's whole story, read the book. It's a great book. I actually read it twice. It's one of the best books I ever read. So if you
Say that again.
Yeah. If you want to hear this, if you want to hear his story, that's why I know his story, because I read his book, but it's pretty cool.
Corporate turnaround artistry, fix any business in 100 days. And thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for writing it. So who else do I need to call on? Patrice. Patrice has a cool business.
That requires me to unmute myself.
I know.
Thanks, Jeff. Yep, we launched a new app right before the pandemic. The good news is that the platform is designed to help individuals and companies to figure out their career development path and help them to plan that path out so that they are really working in the kind of work that's most fulfilling for them and getting the type of pay that they really like to get. So understanding how to create those connections and networks and things like that. So we built this amazing, fun platform and had a lot of amazing people, leaders who are using this platform, and the idea is to chart new directions right along with the great resignation that's occurring right now. Many people are doing a whole lot of different things, so that's what we're up to.
And so the question, the following question is, what made you choose that path?
Yes, so I chose the path because I really love working with leaders and helping them and enlightening them about how to help their teams to focus on an employee-centric way of helping people map out their careers. I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and as well as executives, and done 3 successful exits myself. So love the idea of navigating into different career paths as you go through your different phases. I think that's totally the way the world is moving, and I think it needs to be better supported. The idea that companies should shackle you to your desk and you should just do what they want you to do is just quite crazy these days. So how do people take control of their own career? Can be kind of challenging. We're talking about personal branding. I love what she's talking about relative to how do you build your own brand. Really important in this day and age to do that for yourself so you can map that direction, take control of it.
Nice, thank you. So Mark, I know you got some input on all this. Mark's doing some cool things too.
Oh, I never have anything to say.
I know.
I've been expanding my vision the last year or so. As you know, Jeff, I started out with the vision of helping small business owners understand the value of their businesses and how to trans, you know, sell them or transfer them to family members. And I did that. I came upon that because I brokered exclusively for about 5 years and realized they were scared to death as they were signing the papers. Right. So that was where I started, and now I sort of expanded that to where it's very close to what you said, Jeff. And I actually had this conversation about an hour ago with my intern, because he goes, "Why are you doing this?" And I realize I'm just at this age where I just want to help people and help them avoid all the mistakes I've made throughout my career. So, as you know, I've added freeway to fractional to my curriculum as far as teaching business owners or executives to become fractional sale leadership, which is how you and I met. So it really comes down to, I'm going to help people, and I'm going to keep adding things to my portfolio to help them get better, those targets, as I see my skill set fits their needs. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool.
All right, so I'm going to call on Don. Don also has a very interesting business and outlook on markets and where he's going. Don, you want to share a little bit? Yes, maybe. Took himself off mute. Okay.
It works better that way, does it not? It's amazing.
There you go. Okay.
It's amazing. My last full-time CFO job, the first 17 times I told the CEO we were running out of cash, what he heard was a challenge to go raise equity. First 17 times it worked. And so I decided no longer to put all my eggs in one basket anymore. So that's how I became a fractional CFO. CFO for several other companies before that, but that was the one that kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. Most of the best business leaders are not in small to medium-sized businesses. And if you're over 40, it's harder to get a job at the right level for a small to medium-sized business. So that's how I got into it.
Nice. Good. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to, so we have a hard stop in 10 minutes, but again, this is going to just continue on. And the reason I'm calling on people is because I know that they have some interesting answers to these questions. And so hopefully this is giving the rest of the people on the team thoughts on how to answer these, what's going on here. So is there anybody else who wants to volunteer or wants me to call on them so they don't have to volunteer?
Hey, Jeff, this is
Yeah.
Dave.
Okay.
I've been playing around with this concept and haven't been spending enough time with this, so it's just random thoughts. But I have come up with a line, which I'm not necessarily married to, but I'm starting to maybe use it or think of something better to replace it. But I'm still not 100% sure if it's a vision or if it's really a mission. But so the first thing I came up with was this thing like, well, what do you do? So I said, well, I try to make finance simple for growing companies. So, I'm not, like I said, I give that a B or a B plus, but I'm not sure if that's my mission or if that's my vision.
I think depending on what else, to me, it sounds more like a mission statement because it is what you're doing. And what do you like? I think the vision then is, what are you trying to achieve by doing that? What's the bigger picture there? But I'm happy that you've been playing around with it. When I first started doing this, I wrote my own, which was just to help people make decisions that were good for them in their environment. And that was it. And that was what I did for a long time until I started to kind of segment myself a little bit more and grow more skills be able to do more. But I think that that's a great start.
Yeah, so Dave, I think if you look at those two questions above the mission, take what you just said and peel it back just a bit and say, you know, why is what you do important? So, you know, the why behind what you're doing. And then why did you choose that path? So, you know, if you can answer those two questions, because you got the third one. And there's probably an answer that's sitting in the back of your mind somewhere that you just got to get out to the front. That's the hard part, is to figure those pieces out.
I
Well,
guess.
I think a lot of us, like, I have the second question, you know, what made you choose this path? And I'm not going to speak, but Jeff, I'm sure a lot of us had a similar journey that you did. It wasn't like I woke up, you know, 35 years ago and said, I want to be a fractional CFO. It sort of was like a journey to get to this point. And, you know, for me, I made the decision probably a lot less than a year ago. Now, it was a rough decision to finally make, but, you know, almost a year later, I'm very happy I made it. But it certainly wasn't my pathway that I was considering even probably a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is Jim. I found my way into finance and accounting as I always told my kids, do something that you would do anyway, and somebody will pay you to do it. And I didn't intentionally do that. I just always kept track of things. And when I was a kid, you know, numbers and just keeping score. And so found myself on my way into business school, finance and accounting degree, and worked in corporate throughout. And then kind of unknowingly morphed into more of a business partner. And I came up with the tagline, translating scorekeeping into improving results. And I found that I really enjoyed engaging with the rest of the business, all stakeholders, in how do we improve the bottom line through kind of bringing the numbers out of the back room to where people can really understand them, and collectively we can improve the bottom line. And I didn't really even realize that. I did Clifton Strengths a few years back and finally realized, yeah, that's in your makeup, in the basic strengths that you have. So it was kind of cool. I, you know, just unintentionally did it.
Nice. Very good. All right. So I'm going to call on a couple of people I don't really know. So keep your heads down if, so Leonard.
Yes.
Okay. Any stabs at this?
Oh God, no. I've been throwing down some things of, you know, why I would want to get into it and what's really kind of brought me to this point, because it's more of a recent thing. But, you know, the one thing I really take away is what's brought me to this point is that, you know, I work with a lot of people who are leaders who really don't really see how to be that business partner to operational leaders. You know, I've been in that space for quite some time, supporting, you know, IT line of business. And I've worked with a lot of people who really don't know, you know, how to do things, at least from my perspective, you know, how I would approach it differently to get the better answers.
Yeah.
Or at least, you know, find ways or better ways to improve the bottom line. You know, and that's where I've been kind of pondering those thoughts as I go on this journey. You know, this is really new to me, and that's why I wanted to hop on this call to kind of, you know, get a sense as to, you know, how to approach this. So, you know, not really given much thought of the value proposition, but I'll be honest with you, it's more of uh, really, I feel like I have a lot of value to offer to smaller or even larger businesses on their you know, line of business finance.
Yeah.
But to come up with that value proposition at this moment, or, you know, what my mission is really something I need to work on and give it a little bit more thought.
Good.
But I know that I do learn a lot from people where I've seen where they've made a ton of mistakes and try to learn from that. So as I said, I'm jotting down notes and kind of listening to everybody and seeing how, you know, how they've positioned themselves, which is really amazing. And I think that's that's my homework.
Okay, cool. So Tom Ramsey, you always have some interesting thoughts.
Do I?
Yeah.
Sure. I help dreamers appeal to conventional investors. I stumbled, like many people on the call, I stumbled into becoming a fractional CFO through in my case, a layoff. I got laid off. I was laid off from a large financial consulting company. What do I want to do? I have these skills. I have this background. What do I want to do? And I found a close family member, a relative, who had a lot of money and they wanted to start doing stuff. And they're just dreamers. You'd get laughed out of a meeting room. And I help refine the pitch to make it so that it's not silly. And that's what I do.
Cool. Okay, so Don wants to say something.
Well, I do it in 3 parts, Jeff, and Mel. So if you can give me feedback, but I tell them what I do, what are the problems I solve, and then for clarity, I tell them what I don't do.
That's important.
Yep.
Knowing what you don't do.
But why? But so then so the question though, and this is the hard part, because we all have a tendency as financial people, particularly, to answer that way. But it's why is you got to stick to the real questions here. Why is what you do important? And what made you choose this path? So yes, I'm doing fractional work because I got laid off. Same thing. But why am I staying with it? And what path am I really on? I got into it. I stumbled into this. I found out that I could help people that needed my help and grow and develop in their careers and help companies grow. And so that's actually what made me choose the path, is this enlightenment that I got. And the same is very similar to what Anna said. It dawned on her that she could fill this gap, and it was a good gap for her to fill. So these are all things that are really tough to wrestle with, and Melanie and I have to leave in 1 minute. So I don't know how to get you guys the PowerPoint, because we don't have a registration for this meeting.
They can send you a LinkedIn request. Most of them are probably connected to you on LinkedIn, so just request it.
Yeah, and if you're not, you should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Or Jeff, you could
Or
drop
put
your
emails in the
email.
chat.
Put your email in the chat, Jeff, and have them email you.
That would be good too.
That would be good. And then I wanted to, I know we're leaving here, but there is some homework. So it'll be good to email that out too, which is the Strengths Finder. And then I have a couple of little assessments.
All right, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to send around an email after this meeting to the whole group. And so if you want the PowerPoint, you just rifle me back from that email. Okay, and I think you guys all get this email. That's the email about this group. Okay, and Melanie will be back next week, and Don, I don't know if you're still here, but I want to talk to Don about Don. You want to do something next week or next month?
Let me see. I need to check my schedule, but if I can attend, I will. But it depends if a client blows up between now and then.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll work it out. Okay. Anyway, there'll be somebody else here too. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We got to run.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody. Great job.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
all.
Bye
Great
now.
job.
Yep.
Thank you.